Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
There are few signs of progress as the U.S. nears an unprecedented default on its debt. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. Right now, local organizations are preparing for what could be a serious economic blow. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer looks at what that could mean for San Diegans.
President Biden and Republicans in Congress have not made much progress on raising the debt ceiling. That's the limit on how much money the U.S. can borrow. SDSU economics professor Hisham Foad explains why it matters if it's not raised.
We're going to come up short of meeting all of our obligations, whether it be interest on debt that we owe, but also something, everyday things like Social Security and Medicare payments, paying the salaries of people in our military, meeting our obligations for government contracts, all sorts of things.
Local organizations like the San Diego Food Bank receive 20 to 30% of their supply from federally funded programs. The political stalemate on the debt ceiling could lead to cuts in their food quantity and increase the number of people they need to serve, says the organization's Vanessa Ruiz.
Now, if we have bigger issues with the debt ceiling and they start cutting CalFresh, SNAP, it could mean a lot more people are going to be looking for food assistance from us.
Time is running out. The $31.4 trillion ceiling has already been reached. If Congress fails to act, the government could default as early as June 1st. Foad says even a week of delay could have catastrophic effects.
Basically, we're going to have to start making some decisions about what to prioritize. And it's almost certain that the Treasury Department's going to prioritize meeting their debt and interest payments first.
Ruiz says this has happened before, even recently in 2018 and 2019, and it impacted San Diegans.
Back when we saw the debt ceiling reach its cap, government shut down, we were serving additional folks who never came to our food distribution, such as the Coast Guard. We had other military branches that were coming to our doors asking for food assistance, whether temporarily or indefinitely until they could get back on their feet.
Foad says it's still unlikely that no agreement on the debt ceiling is reached in time, but it's important to brace for the worst-case scenario. That includes federal budget cuts and a serious hit to the overall economy that he says would lead to a recession. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Current students and those still paying off student loans have a lot riding on what happens in Washington this week. That part of the story is coming up. It's a startling statistic. More than 100 child care centers in San Diego County have reported lead levels in drinking water above state safety standards. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman says there's no safe level of lead for children.
California law requires child care centers built before 2010 to test their faucets and drinking fountains for lead and report those findings to the state. If levels are above standards, they have to be fixed. Some of that data has been released, and while most centers are in compliance, about a fourth across the state were not.
We're really concerned.
Susan Little is a senior advocate from the Environmental Working Group. The nonprofit sponsored the testing law and was the first to get the testing data.
What's alarming here is that we really see this as potentially the tip of the iceberg because the data we received represents only about 50% of licensed child care centers. We're still waiting to get the results from the rest of them.
The CDC says there's no safe level of lead. One San Diego child care center has the highest testing result in California so far. La Petite Academy near Rancho Penasquitos had one test from last August, registering 11,000 lead parts per billion. The state requirement is 5 parts per billion or less. In a statement, a spokesperson for La Petite Academy says the source with the highest lead samples were drinking fountains that had not been used since before the pandemic, adding that the fountains were immediately removed and other water sources repaired. After retesting, they say all water sources are in compliance.
No one wants a child to have lead, and it leads to all these downstream effects.
Dr. V. Nguyen is a San Diego-based pediatrician. She's also chair of the American Academy of Pediatrics California Committee on Environmental Health. She says children are generally at higher health risks from lead exposure.
It's toxic to brain cells, and it can increase the risk of ADHD, autism, because it just shifts the IQ curve.
La Petite Academy officials say they have no reports of anyone getting sick. The second highest lead reading from drinking water at a child care center in San Diego County was from the East Lake Community Church preschool located in Chula Vista. A test from last October revealed 570 lead parts per billion, well above the state's 5 part per billion baseline. The director of the preschool says in a statement 2 bathroom sinks had elevated levels, and those sinks were solely used for hand washing. The statement says hardware has been replaced, and the sinks are restricted from use while the center awaits results from retesting. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Nearly 300,000 San Diego County residents could get financial help to pay for groceries, but don't. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson has more. All right, we will try to get back to Katie's report in just a moment. But in case you missed it, Katie Hyson also brought us an in-depth look at the impact of reduced food assistance benefits on San Diegans. You can watch that story and more of our feature reporting on the KPBS YouTube channel. After complaints from neighbors, the city of Oceanside is reviewing its relationship with the Brother Benno's Foundation. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne has that story.
Oceanside's Planning Commission is reviewing the Brother Benno's Foundation's conditional use permit. The organization provides meals, food, and supportive services to community members in need. The permit lets them operate in a business park on Production Avenue, as long as their operations aren't detrimental to the public or nearby properties. But business owners in the area, like Bryce Aberg, say the business park has become dangerous due to some of the people Brother Benno's serves.
Physical fights, altercations, defecating on our businesses, on our front doorsteps, and it goes on and on. The problems have gotten much worse.
Complaints against Brother Benno's forced the organization to make some changes earlier this year. It began closing earlier and hired additional security and sanitation staff. Regardless, many of the business owners at the Planning Commission meeting on Monday called for the nonprofit's permit to be revoked. Michael Moskowitz, a Brother Benno's board member, says that in the month of April, they gave out over 12,000 meals and over 1,000 housing vouchers for people in need.
We are not enabling the homeless community. We are supporting the homeless community so that they can survive. And the thought that somehow Brother Benno disappeared, that the homeless would disappear along with us, is a misconception.
Captain Taurino Valdovinos with the Oceanside Police Department says since Brother Benno's implemented some changes, he has seen improvements in the area.
We did see a significant reduction in the amount of people and unsheltered people around the area. However, I think it can be improved significantly.
Planning commissioners recommended some changes to Brother Benno's permit, including monthly meetings with stakeholders, 24-hour security from a third party, and additional sanitation support. A decision on Brother Benno's permit will be made at a later meeting. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
A San Diegan has been tapped to help lead the fight against homelessness in California. Governor Gavin Newsom selected Hafsa Keika to be his new senior advisor on the issue. She's been the director of San Diego's Homelessness Strategies and Solutions Department. During her tenure, the city launched more outreach programs and created more than 500 beds. Newsom has a goal of decreasing homelessness in the state by 15% by the year 2025. Rock and roll icon Tina Turner has died at age 83. It was announced today in a post on her verified Facebook page. Here's Stephanie Elam with a tribute to the Queen of Rock and Roll.
Crowds Proud Mary was one of Tina Turner's signatures, showcasing her unique sound, look, and moves.
That's my style. I take great songs and turn them into rock and roll songs on stage.
Icon, survivor, a queen of rock and roll. Tina Turner began life as Anna Mae Bullock in rural Tennessee. As a teenager, she moved to St. Louis, where she met rocker Ike Turner.
Ike was very good to me when I first started my career. Started to sing weekends with him, and we were really close friends.
The Ike and Tina Turner Revue's first hit came in 1960 with A Fool in Love, a song they performed on Shindig. They married in 1962, and in 1966 recorded River Deep, Mountain High. It was a hit overseas, but flopped in the U.S. Offstage, Ike's drug abuse fueled violent outbursts.
I had had a lot of violence. Houses burned, cars shot into, like, the lowest that you can think of in terms of violence.
After years of physical and emotional abuse, Tina left Ike in the mid-70s with nothing but her name. At one point, relying on food stamps to survive. In the early 80s, Turner's cover of Let's Stay Together reignited her career. Private Dancer followed in 1984, a runaway critical and commercial success. The album featured her only #1 song. Though she wasn't a fan.
I didn't like it. I wasn't accustomed to singing those kind of songs.
It was also the title of a 1993 film starring Angela Bassett, based on Tina's autobiography.
Did the picture do it justice?
Yes, I think in a way. I would have liked for them to have had more truth, but according to Disney, it's impossible that people would not have believed the truth.
Turner herself appeared in movies such as The Who's Tommy and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. She sang its theme song. As well as the theme to the James Bond film, GoldenEye. One major role she turned down would go to Oprah Winfrey in The Color Purple.
It was too close to my personal life. I had just left such a life, and it was too soon to be reminded of.
The What's Love Got to Do With It soundtrack gave Turner another hit. Her personal favorite?
You're simply the best. It was very special because at the time when I got it, no one believed in it but me.
Turner continued recording and touring into her 80s. She was honored by the Kennedy Center in 2005 and inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo act in 2021, 30 years after her first induction as part of a duo with Ike Turner. All the while, her Buddhist faith kept her going.
The calls you make this lifetime can be the effect of a better life the next lifetime. It will be better and gets better and better.
San Diego is one of the top cities in the country for multi-generational households, and each home of 3 generations or more is different. For the KPBS series Under the Same Roof, reporter Gustavo Solis spoke with one family whose grandmother moved in so they could take better care of her.
Whenever you have 3 generations living together under one roof, conflicts are unavoidable, especially with the little things like who gets to pick what the family watches on TV?
Do you take the control away from your grandma?
Yeah, she does.
No, I ask.
Alicia is a 10-year-old girl who lives with her 2 parents and her 88-year-old grandmother in National City. Grandma Ludivina Vega moved in with her family last year. She valued her independence, but health issues prevented her from living on her own.
It's fun. It feels good in your heart to be close to your relatives.
Alicia's mom and dad both have full-time jobs. They're also taking care of Abuela, which is what they call the grandmother. Liliana Vega says becoming a caretaker feels like a full-time job, especially when you have to navigate San Diego County's complex healthcare system.
You just don't know who to ask. And then some people give you some information, but they don't give you all the information. I'm like, why can't? Isn't there something that you could just go to, like, you have elderly parents? go and deal with this if they're on Social Security or whatever. Like, it can't be this hard.
After multiple phone calls with different government agencies, she was able to finally get a home health aide visit for 4 hours a week. Now she helps other friends who have also had to become caretakers and offers this piece of advice.
It's gonna change your life. It's gonna affect your relationship with your husband or your partner, whoever they may be, and not necessarily negatively, but it's just, it has to be a lot of patience, and it's gonna be hard.
The average cost of assisted living in San Diego County is more than $5,000 a month. That's according to a study by Genworth Cost of Care. Liliana's husband, Ricardo Islas, says that putting Abuela in a home was never an option, even if they could afford it. He remembers growing up with his own grandma in the house and says taking care of elders is a big part of Mexican culture.
I think it's maybe just the way we grew up, like whether it would be my parents or her mom. You know, when it came time to take care of a family member, I think we were just all raised to not put somebody in a home, to just take care of them as long as you can.
Even though she doesn't always get to choose what to watch on TV, NCIS is her favorite, Ludivina Vega says that living with her family is a blessing. In the following weeks of this series, we'll bring you stories highlighting the experiences of other multi-generational households. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
If you have a story to tell about your multi-generational household, we'd love to hear it. Just go to kpbs.org/roof. Federal student loan borrowers should keep a close eye on Washington. A bill in the House aims to repeal President Joe Biden's student debt relief program, which is also under review by the U.S. Supreme Court. As Karen Kafa reports, the possible U.S. default could also shake things up.
Republicans again taking aim at President Joe Biden's plan to forgive billions of dollars of federal student loan debt.
The Department of Education has vastly overstepped its authority.
No debt has been canceled yet under Biden's proposal to offer forgiveness of up to $20,000 for about 40 million low and middle income borrowers.
Nearly 90% of eligible borrowers live in households earning less than $75,000 a year.
The plan is also under consideration by the U.S. Supreme Court, who heard two challenges arguing overreach by the Biden administration. Their ruling is expected as soon as next month. But for those who haven't made a federal loan payment during a 3-year pandemic pause, Mark Kantrowitz, who has written multiple books on the student financial aid process, says to pay attention and get plans in order.
Borrowers may get forgiveness or they may not get forgiveness. They should plan for the restart of repayment regardless.
The Biden administration says payments will resume soon, the exact date pending the Supreme Court ruling. And current borrowers could also feel the fallout of a potential U.S. default on its debt if a deal to raise the debt ceiling isn't reached.
A default would prevent the federal government from spending money on federal student aid like the Pell Grants and issuing new loans.
A prolonged default potentially delaying federal loan disbursement for the fall semester. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
Today marks 1 year since the horrific shooting that killed 21 people at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. As Laura Aguirre reports, unanswered questions about exactly what happened that day have left families in emotional limbo.
Beautiful but sobering church bells, tolling for the 19 children and 2 teachers killed at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas 1 year ago. Survivors, families, loved ones, and community members gathered to find comfort, peace, and unity. A butterfly release sent their grief and love skyward. Texas Governor Greg Abbott ordered the state's flags flown at half-staff. In a statement, he called for a moment of silence to honor the victims and their loved ones who endure. Despite an outpouring of support, many of the victims' families still struggle with the unknown.
The answers have not been provided, so there's no sense of healing, no sense of closure.
Questions and anger linger about the widely criticized 77-minute police response that day.
People refuse to accept the facts. They refuse to acknowledge their incompetence, basically. And that information will eventually come out, through litigation, through attorneys and stuff like that.
While answers remain elusive for many of the families, their Uvalde strong bond is clear.
if anything good came out of this, that's one good thing. I mean, we all love each other, and we're there for each other. We stand with each other.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
It's National EMS Week, and local paramedics and EMTs are being celebrated for the important work they do. Rady Children's Hospital is also reminding parents about the potential risks to children's safety during this time of year. Emergency room staff say they see an increase in visits for orthopedic and head injuries during the summer months. They say the number of drownings and near drownings also increase, most commonly among 1 to 4-year-olds.
For the near drownings and drownings, we still see 40 to 60 kids that require inpatient admission, and there's usually another 60 to 80 during the summer that are seen by primary care, urgent care, that don't end up having to come to the hospital. So we're looking at around 100 kids that are, dealing with submergent injuries every month in the summer, just here in San Diego County.
ER staff recommends putting water safety measures in place, like installing fences, learning CPR, and supervising kids closely in the water.
Looks like the May gray will continue as we go throughout the next several afternoons, along with, again, a little change in temperature. We'll have that holiday weekend forecast coming up, and the mountains and the deserts a little on the breezy side right into Thursday. For tonight, low clouds in place sound familiar. Yeah, that marine layer is quite extensive right now as we see temperatures dropping down into the upper 50s. Again, Oceanside and Chula Vista also will see the numbers dropping down into the upper 50s. Ramona, a little cooler at 51. Mount Laguna on either side of 50. Here we are. We're on the lower side of 50 at 49. Borrego Springs down to 60 degrees. And there it is, the cloudiness coming right back into the picture this evening, tonight, throughout the morning, and then right into those midday hours. Gradually, over some of the interior valleys, we'll see some sunshine, but more clouds coming up at the immediate coast, where temperatures will be down into the 60s. So we'll be running below historical averages here. Mount Laguna into the 50s. That's it. Ramona staying put into the 60s too. Borrego Springs, we'll talk about the mid-90s along with lots of sunshine. Let's go down the road here before the coast, and notice on a daily basis, what do you see first? Low clouds, low clouds, low clouds. It's going to take some time for them to break here. Temperatures bunching very little from the upper 60s to the low 70s over the course of the next several days. Over some of the interior valleys, clouds to start, then some sunshine. Temperatures topping out right around 70 here most days. Low temperatures bottoming out into the 50s. As I mentioned, over some of the interior zones toward the mountains, still some breezes kicking up on Thursday and still cool. Wow, look at those 50s in place right through the start of the weekend. Clouds and sunshine, 50s to right around 60 Sunday into Monday. And throughout the deserts, not a lot of change here either on either side of 90. Still some gusty breezes Thursday. Otherwise, lots of sunshine right into early next week. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
It should come as no surprise. America's finest city, even with the May gray, is home to some of the country's best parks. The nonprofit Trust for Public Land ranked the park systems in the 100 largest U.S. cities. San Diego came in at number 24. Chula Vista made the list at number 77. KPBS reporter Melissa May has more on how our parks are making the grade.
San Diego climbed 5 spots in this year's Park Score Index ranking due to improved park investment. 19% of the city of San Diego is dedicated park space, one of the best marks in the country. Will Klein is with Trust for Public Land. He says the Park Score Index is considered the gold standard for park evaluation because it offers a national perspective on what's going on in city parks.
And it's the most comprehensive look at city parks across the country. And so each year we reach out to over 500 organizations in across the 100 cities to collect data from public and private park agencies and combine that to look at the total park system in each city from kind of the residents' perspective.
Klein says currently 81% of San Diegans are within a 10-minute walk of a park, which is higher than the national average of 75%.
That's great. I mean, I think the weather here is so nice to be able to walk to a park, not have to get in your car and drive.
This year, the Park Score Index included data about 2 key health factors: physical activity and mental health.
And what we found was the cities with the highest Park Score rankings, those in the top 25, like San Diego, were healthier places to live.
in those top 25 cities, people were on average 9% less likely to suffer from poor mental health and 21% less likely to be physically inactive.
Klein says those tangible health benefits back up the importance of parks in a community.
I think they're important so you get to know who lives in your community and your neighbors. I think also to exercise, getting kids out of the house, off there. Not that my kids have phones, but things like that. Really getting kids out and getting to know your community.
Matt Estes and his two boys, Miles and David, have enjoyed several parks throughout San Diego.
The people that I've met here, but the swings are my kids' favorites. But there's a lot of different things for them to do at these parks. And also I think they're really safe.
Nora Allen and her family also enjoy the local parks.
Well, as a mother of two little ones, they're pretty much my life right now on maternity leave, so they're pretty critically important to me. I love the trees, the mature trees. You don't have that everywhere, so that's one of my favorite things.
Washington, D.C. retained the National Park Score Index title with an 84.9 out of 100. Melissa May, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. NPR's Morning Edition has more on the passing of Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Tina Turner and the legacy she leaves in American culture. And KPBS arts producer Julia Dixon Evans joins Midday Edition with some of her picks for events happening around San Diego this weekend. Always a lot of good stuff. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.